There's nothing like talking when your mic is muted. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome in. It is Watercolor Wednesday, and we are live tonight. We're live both on YouTube and in Brush and Script, the free group. Pretty sure. So let me just double check that we are broadcasting in both of those groups. Well, in the group and on YouTube. How's everybody tonight? So, coffee, tea, and watercolor. What's the deal with that, Kimberly? Like, what does coffee and tea have to do with watercolor? Well, it's one of the most frustrating things ever to try to learn water control, like how much water to how much paint when you are working with watercolor. So I played around a bit today. I was playing with my brushes and my color scale. And I'm just using Artist Grade paint. Hey, Cindy. Okay, yes, I am live. Hey, Cindy. Hello, Dior Design and Decor. I'm excited to catch you, that you've caught us too, right? So, one of the most frustrating things about watercolor is how much water do I actually use, right? So, if you've sat down to paint, at times you might have gotten these anywhere from these really light strokes with your paintbrush all the way up to like these really thick strokes with your brush. So like I said today, I was playing around with it because you really only need like one color of watercolor to be able to paint. And you can paint some pretty cool things with just one color of paint, right? So let me know in the chat if you're watching this. Have you been struggling with your water control? Have you been struggling to know, am I using enough water or am I using too much water? I just can't figure this out. Just let me know in the chat there below if you've been struggling with that. And we're going to get right on to this. So I've got some watercolor here. This is my one little limited palette you guys are probably getting used to seeing. And I'm going to, this was from the other day when I was playing around painting the birds. I think this will be fun. We can paint birds soon too. You do, Cindy. You do. And girl, do you have your electric back on? I know that you're without power down there with those storms. So I've been keeping you in my prayers. I just saw that today, but I haven't had a chance to send you a message. Praying for you guys. So anyway, that's for another day. We'll play with some color and adding white, believe it or not, to our watercolor. But this I wanted to pull, and I'm going to open up my sketchbook. You guys grab an inexpensive sketchbook at the store. You can learn so much by playing in it. You don't have to feel like you don't need the best, most expensive paper. You don't need the best, most expensive paint. You don't need to spend all this money on things. I actually went to Michael's yesterday and picked up some Aquafine, which is the dollar roundy colors, and was playing with those with the birds. I loved it. So that's not bad. I did just get another new set in tonight, the Mei Lang set, and we're going to be checking that out. Not today, but soon. So anyway, I'm just trying to get myself going here. I'm going to pull this out, right? So, oh, good, Cindy. Good, good, good. Well, just take a little mini vacay at the hotel then, girl. I'm glad to hear that you are safe and, feeling a bit better. So I did this color study with blue, and then I did this color study with some, I think it was crimson red. I think it was crimson. So just, it doesn't matter what color. I'm going to pull this limited palette out. I'm going to get a few drops of water here, and I have some ultramarine blue. I'm going to put a little bit of water over here and just a drop inside of there. Right, so what I want to do is show you a few ways that you can play with water. Hopefully will help you when you're learning to control your water, like how much is too much, how much is not enough. Well, there's really going to be no right or wrong to that. It's really depends on the effect that you're going with. So I'm going to take my size 8 Neptune by Princeton, wet it, and I'm just going to blot it off on the paper towel. Okay, so I'm going to show you this scale. This is where the butter, the cream, and I'm going to go walk you through that. I'm going to show you 2 different ways that you can play. So I've got my blue over here, and when we come in, and I do have some straight out of the tube watercolor here. When I really load up my brush with that straight concentrated color, okay, and I come over here to my paper, and I'll just draw like a little square. You'll see here, it's pretty concentrated with color. It's pretty thick. Let's see if you can see that. I hope that you can. Let me see. If we can zoom in just a little bit. Sorry, guys. There we go. So we'll zoom in a bit. So when I pick up basically mostly all pigment, right? That's what watercolor is, whether it's in a tube or it's dry in a pan or a cake. It's pigment, and whatever the pigment is floating in, usually it's like a guar gum, but your pigment is floating in something. When you mix it with water, you therefore have watercolor. So this is really thick. You can hardly see through the paper, and this is what we would refer to as butter. Okay, so I'm just going to write that here. Good. So that's butter. Very thick watercolor. Really can't see through to the paper a little bit. So I'm just going to make sure I've got a good bit of, this is my butter that's on my brush. I want you to be able to see my water for this. Okay, this is full of pigment. I'm going to take it and dip it into my water, lift it up, and I'm just going to tap some of that water off on the side. Then I'm going to come in below that, and I'm going to paint right next to the butter. And this is what I'm going to consider my cream. It's still a nice, thick, creamy color. It's a little bit thinner, a little bit more water. It's a little bit more smooth. Okay. Now, and then I'm going to dip it again, and I'm going to tap it off on the side again. I'm going to come below that. I'm going to make myself, I might have tapped a little bit too much, but it should be okay. I'm going to tap and put my color down on my paper. This is what we would consider our milk. Okay, it's still somewhat thick. We can see through it. It's a little bit like a milk consistency. I'm going to dip it again, tap it off on the side, and come in here and do another one. Right, so you can see with each successive dip into the water, it's getting a little bit light. So this one we call our coffee. So you think about your drink of coffee. It's water, it's thin, it's the same consistency as something else you might be drinking, but you just can't really see through it, okay? So when we're going to go and our last dip in, and I'm going to tap off again, this one is going to be even thinner, okay? So this one we're going to refer to as our tea, You can even go another step. You can just keep going. Now I got too much water on that, which is why it's showing a little bit darker. But if you can see here, each one, so this is our T. Okay. So when we're working with watercolor, if we're coming straight out of the tube or straight out of the watercolor pan where our color has dried, we're getting a lot of pigment. So we're getting a lot of pigment, okay, less water. And with each dip, we've picked up more water. So more water gives us a little bit thinner. More water gives us even thinner. And more water gives us even more thinner. So less pigment. Oh, can you see what I'm doing down here? Okay, so less pigment and more water. So this is something fun to play with, to learn water control. And if you play with it enough, you will get it down to a point where right in here, honestly, my water has still got the blue in it more than the brush has any pigment in it. So I'm still going to get this fairly light hint of paint in my water because it's just dirty water. So sometimes you might hear an artist refer to using their dirty water or just a dirty brush, dirty water. So if you can see that, it's just got the fairest hint. So this, I would say, would be more tea, right? It's, when you think of a cup of tea, it's brown. You can see through, though, usually to the bottom of your cup, and as it gets thicker. Now, to flip that, we can go the opposite way. So here's what I would want you to do to play around with it this way. We're still going to work on, hold on, let me see. Now we're too close. So, hey, I see some people coming on. As you come on, let me know in the chat if you struggle with water control, knowing how much water to use. Are you using too much? Are you using not enough? There might be a question if you're using butter, is why is my color not spreading across the page like I want it to? And if you're using a lot of water, you get a lot less control with where your color lands, right? So the more pigment we can, and if you have an art sketchbook, guys, an art journal like I do here, this, I love to take notes. So I know here I have a lot more control when I have more pigment, and I have less control the further down the scale I go, right? So you can play around with, just pick a color out of your palette, and you can try to go from butter down to your tea, your weak tea. And we're gonna reverse that here now in a second. I'm just gonna use the blue. Okay, so I'm gonna dip my brush. I'm dipping my brush in my dirty water. Okay, it's really, really wet, as much water in it as you can get it to give. Then I'm going to dip in here and pick up a whole bunch of my pigment. I might not get butter, but I'm going to get this as saturated as I can on my brush. And you can do, oh wait, I'm doing this the wrong way, guys, so don't mind me. Hold on, scratch that, reverse it. Let's start over. Okay, so I'm cleaning my brush, lots and lots and lots of water. Okay, I'm just tapping it, and I'm just going to come in and I'm going to grab a little bit of water on my brush. So then I'm going to come over here, and remember how we made leaves? We just put the brush down, pressed, pulled, and lift. And we can do that again, right? And you can see there, look, when that paper moves, that's a lot of water, right? It's puddling. I'm not going to pick up any more water, but I'm going to come over and I'm going to dip into my watercolor again, and I'm going to make another leaf shape. If you don't feel comfortable making leaves, make a circle right next to it. I'm trying to get this where you can see it. So I'm going to just come over. I'm not picking up any more water. I've only dipped my water here. So this one here is the most water. Now I'm going to slowly add pigment to my brush. Instead of when we did our butter to tea, we added water to the pigment. We're now adding pigment to the water. So we're just doing that in reverse. So I'm going to make myself another little leaf here. Okay, and I'm just going to keep repeating that. I'm going to come over, no more water. I'm just going straight into pigment, picking up more. And what this is going to do, you might not be able to see the difference on screen, but what you will be able to feel is how thick this is getting on my brush and how it is not wanting to run off. Because I used ultramarine blue, it's a very thick, dark color to begin with. You'll see here, like I'm not picking up any more water. I just keep getting more and more pigment. And it does not want to flow off my brush like it did up here. So less water, now we've got more pigment, right? So you can see, and what you're going to learn from doing these experiments, right, is, like I said, why can't I get this to cover my page, right? I've basically working with butter here. See how it's leaving texture on my paper? I'm working with butter. It's so dry on my brush, and I don't have enough water. Does this making sense to everyone? I don't have enough water. So this is my butter, just like we made over here. Guys, I see a few of you coming in. So just to let you know, this is one of the most frustrating things with watercolor, is knowing how much water am I supposed to use. If you've ever ran into this problem where you're trying to paint and it looks like this, right? You're creating a lot of texture. This is dry brushing with watercolor. My brush isn't exactly dry, but I don't have enough water. And otherwise, like I'm going to dip in here now and go right next to it. I'm just dipping my brush straight in with water, and I'm just going to use the brush straight out of my water right next to that. So you can see, so we're going from not enough water to perhaps too much water. I can't control very well where my paint's going to go. I can't control it very well to make sure my water is even. You know, so when your water is puddling like this, basically what's happening is the pigment is just floating on the top of the water. And usually what it will do is settle to the out. See how it's moving? If I just turn, you don't want to see that where it's puddling and all of your water is going to one end. You don't want to see that. Okay. Then again, rules are made to be broken, but these are just two quick exercises that you can play with, going from making butter and adding drops of water to get yourself all the way down to tea. So more pigment is less water. So you're going to have a darker color, and you're going to have a lot more control of where your color goes, right? But you won't be able to cover a lot of area. And if it gets too dry, you get this. Then we move down to less pigment, more water, less control. So you have less control of where your color is going to go. So can you make art using one color and just knowing a bit about water control? Absolutely. I'm going to take my little sketchbook and set it off to the side. And I just have a little piece of Canson watercolor paper right here. Okay. And I need to activate my ultramarine blue again because we pulled all the water out of that. Is this helpful? Let me know in the chat. I also want to know, feel free to leave questions. Let me know what you're struggling with and what you would like to see on the next coming episodes of Watercolor Wednesday. That way, I can always bring you more of what you'd like to learn. So I'm going to keep my chart here, right? So with our red, dark butter, all the way down to tea. That's not exactly weak tea, but it's tea, okay? And then it doesn't matter what color. So I'm going to grab I'm switching now to my size 6 Princeton Aqua, and I'm going to pull over my watercolor palette. And I'm going to just activate this ultramarine blue. Is just such a beautiful color, right? You don't even need to know how to make a lot of stuff like we just did in the sketchbook. You can make circles, you can make leaves, you can make lines. I'm just going to do a few random leaves across the paper. So if I don't feel comfortable, I'll just think of a C shape or an S shape, right? So something like a long S. I'm going to take my brush and just make that bottom part of the brush. So 2 kind of C shapes here. All right, so what I'm going to do off of that is I'm just going to pull out, press, pull back, and lift. Okay, out, press, pull back, and lift. I can pick up more pigment, come in, and just keep repeating that. So I'm making sort of like palm fronds. I'm going to dip in and pick up a little bit of water. Right, so you can alternate playing with the water versus pigment to just kind of make something pretty on your page, right? And if I want some dark, I can just come and grab more blue. So it's just that push, that pull, and that lift. Let's do one here at the top. Get some more water. You'll see right there where my leaf kind of skipped. Oh, it looks like we're going to get a storm. It's kicking up outside and some lightning. So hopefully you don't lose me, but we're almost done, guys. See right there where it skipped. Not enough water on my brush, right? I like the look, but I like to show you these things because then if you say like, well, why did this happen to me? I don't understand why this is happening to me. If you understand the rules, then it's not to say you can't break them on purpose, right? So let's make just a really simple little flower, kind of like I did here. I'm just going to draw a few dots, and I'm using a lot of pigment, and I'm just going to drop a few dots around in a circle. I'm going to do it again right over here. Just a few dots, kind of around in a circle, and then I'm going to clean off my brush. My brush is very dirty, so I'm going to grab my fresh, clean water and give it a good rinse there. Okay, now I'm going to start out here, and I'm going to drop my brush and make like an upside down U. You should be able to see that kind of like a rainbow. And what I'll do is I'll pull that water back in to meet those circles. And I will just keep repeating that with kind of like a U. And I will make a 5-petaled flower doing this. I can see how it's lighter. A lot of water. I have a lot of water there, right? But the same color that we used to make the leaves. I'm just using a very good bit of weak tea now to pull my flowers together. The more water that I use, the weaker the tea, but you'll see how there's less control of where that paint goes. To where we pulled our leaves, we had a lot of control to where our paint was going to go. When you use a lot of water, and I love using a lot of water, but when you use a lot of water, the color, the pigment just will float and bloom and go. And I love that. I really do. But you can learn the rules and then break them the way you want to. So then I can come in, grab some more paint, some more color, and maybe I'll add a few more leaves here coming off. And we'll do one going this way. But do you see how you can make these really pretty flowers and pictures with using just one color of paint? So now I'm coming in with my butter, and I am tapping that butter. There's some gray clouds out there. Tapping that butter down into the flower. And do you see, I'm just going to hold it up a little bit closer. You can see how that is blooming out now into my flowers because they are very, very wet. Now, if I were to tap this onto my leaf, it's not going to move anywhere. So it's butter. This has already dried. It's not going to move anywhere. Okay. So that's it for tonight. I hope this helped a little bit with you learning brush control. Coffee, tea, perhaps some butter with your watercolor. And once you learn this, I guarantee you won't be as frustrated with your watercolor in the past. Again, let me know in the chat if you have any questions below. If you are watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel. And we will come live every Wednesday evening between 6 and 7 to just kind of experiment a little bit with watercolor on Wednesdays. Cindy, I'm great. I'm so glad that helped. I'm really that is watercolor in a really quick nutshell, like 25 minutes. But practice that making butter to tea to weak tea, and it will help you so much in your painting. Guys, thank you for watching. Have a blessed evening. If you're getting storms, be safe where you are. And if you are affected by storms, I pray for you there as well. Have a good night, guys.